So I know you mentioned the intimacy thing. So
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So yeah,
you can ask
on
it.
the intimacy, who should do the initiating? Like I know we've been together for 22 years, and so like at the beginning of a relationship, I was always used to the man, him doing it, and still now to this day. I mean, I know we've been together so long, like I still look at it as like he should, he's the man, but I know he wants me to pursue it too. But I always have a hard time because I always look at he's done it for so long, him going for it first, just making that first initial. But once it happens, I'm fine. But I look at it like that's a man's thing, get me all riled up.
100%. So I'd like to see the guy initiate probably about 90% of the time. Now, he initiates 90% of the time, but the woman's role is to sort of allure him into showing him, hey, I want you to initiate. Kind of like a sunflower attracting a bee. You're flirting, you can initiate. It sort of gives him that green light in an indirect way, if you know what I'm saying, that flirty game.
Yeah, that's one thing I was kind of curious about. I know intimacy and sex, that's a big part of relationships, man. Like that's I think a lot of men, we feel like that's how we feel affirmation and things like that. I mean, I do. I mean, I probably speak for most men. We're all the same at the end of the day. So it is tougher whenever the female doesn't at all or much, and you want that, you communicate that, but that doesn't. It gets into a weird space. You can imagine just being a man.
Yeah, it's easy in a long term relationship to fall in a bit of a rut, especially having babies and beforehand and pregnancy and lots of things. It can easily fall into a rut where you guys aren't very intimate. That's very common and can be quite damaging to a relationship. So if you do feel yourself falling into a bit of a rut, some couples, which has worked really well, is they schedule it in. So they might say every Monday and Thursday we're going to be intimate. And then they only need to schedule it in for a couple of weeks, and then it gets the engine pumping, gets a bit of momentum going, and then they don't need to schedule it because they back on track again. So every couple I've worked with, they schedule it in for about the first month, and after that, easy, smooth sailing after that.
Okay, that's good. That's good advice because, like I said, they might not like that he's scheduled, but I'm like, it's one of those things that where you're making sure you're getting that connection. I mean, that's what you're trying to do, right? I mean, that's the basis of it.
It's going to feel awkward at the start, and you're basically like a pair of fish in a bed just sort of flapping around. And it's like, yeah, this isn't very passionate. But then you get into it, and it's really, really good. And then the next time's even better, and the next time you get into a momentum. So it does work. It is awkward at the start. If you are a guy who's in a situation right now and the intimacy's not that good, don't be too emotional about it. One mistake a guys can make is they communicate like women. They forget their men and they don't communicate to their masculine energy. And they sit there and go, this is how I feel. You make me feel unloved. Not effective. She's going to feel really bad about it. She's going to feel like a jerk. She's going to feel like she's a bad partner, which is going to make libido go even down more. Don't do that, guys. Just communicate properly. We probably should do it 3 times a week. I think that'd be best for our relationship. Just do normal communication, nothing too emotional.
Yeah, I was listening to one of your other podcasts you were on recently with the guy in the UK, and that's when I heard you more explain about the feminine masculine stuff, and it makes a lot of sense about the you don't try to be sometimes, but sometimes you can be emotional as a guy, and you could see how that could potentially be a turnoff once you start acknowledging that. I guess would you hear that from another guy talking about that at another level? It makes a lot of sense. Probably tough to get out of that mold sometimes, but it's one of those things where you can be masculine about everything, but when you're not getting sex, if you're like you want, it, you may be pouty about it. I can see that.
For sure. It's understandable.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I could get like you're saying the woman's side of it to how they could feel. It may be a turn off that you not even know you're sabotaging your own self by acting that way.
A lot of failure comes from self-sabotage. Making women wrong is not an effective way to get something. It's the worst way to get
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah, I get that.